The Lord standeth up to plead, and standeth to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people and the princes thereof. For ye have eaten up the vineyard, the spoil of the poor is in your houses. What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor, saith the Lord, God of hosts.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing the book of Isaiah, chapter 19. We'd already dipped into this chapter, the burden of Egypt, and talking about the spirit of Egypt shall fail, the Egyptians, okay. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts. And the water shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up, and they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up. The reeds and the flags shall wither. The paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, and be no more. The fishers also shall mourn. All they that cast angle into the brooks shall lament. And they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish. Okay, so we did this part. Why did I say we're starting in verse 4? We're into verse 12, aren't we? Well, I got to correct that. It'll be corrected on the, we're not in verse 4. We're like, because I remember we did the sluices and ponds for fish thing. But the verses did seem a bit, I'm like, wow, we talk about this much? Well, I did, I think my thought, actually, if I'm going to look at it again, he was going to set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. The spirit of Egypt would fail in the midst thereof, destroy the counsel thereof. They'd seek to the idols. We talked, that I remember extensively talking about seeking to the idols. The Egyptians in the hand of a... The Egyptians into a cruel... there was like, in my Bible, there were some notes about this. About the cruel Lord being actually the Lord of the nations. But I was curious if other translations did that. Specifically, whether or not the Devil's translation would accommodate us there. Pardon me. So let's see. Here we go. 19, verse 5 or whatever, 6, whatever. Brooks of defense. Egyptians, cruel lord. I was cruel. Severe. I don't know. We're not going to go back over those verses. But in my Bible, they suggested that was the king of Assyria. Okay. No doubt. But this reminds me, I remember talking about Revelation, the river drying up, that the way the kings of the east might be prepared when in the book of Revelation, the Euphrates is dried up in the sixth vial. Kind of has points to that a little bit. We talked about everything drying up. And, there is like I said, in the end times, there is a theme of that. There is the two witnesses don't, they cause it that it should not rain. They shut up the heavens, that it shouldn't rain. And that's, and in Egypt there was similar, withholding the rain is something God sometimes does. He sends the rain, and of course he can not send the rain. So we're in verse 11. That's where we're really picking up. So I'll have to change that. I'm going to make a note. To change the thumbnail on this one, but they all used to get changed every time. And I have nothing to write with. Alright, here we go. Carpenter's pencil. That'll do. Yeah, that big 11 will tell me exactly what I need to know. Surely the princes of Zoan are fools. Zoan, one of the major cities of Egypt. The counsel, the wise counselor of Pharaoh, has become brutish. I mean, simplified, like animal-like, like a big brute, like a beast, beastly. That's what the word in English means, anyways. In Hebrew, in verse 11, it says the princes are become deceived. What? What? Oh, okay. In verse 13, it says the princes of Zoan become fools. The princes of Naph are deceived. Like that's later. Brutish. The word means. It means this. Ba'ar, to burn, consume. It doesn't sound like English brutish. To be brutish, to bring, put, take away, burn. A primitive verb to kindle, consume by fire and eating. Also as denominative from ba'ar, to become brutish. So ba'ar. Denominative is the thing when you make a verb into a noun. Like if I go for a run, that is the denominative form of run. Even though it doesn't change it. Sometimes words change when they become nouns. When you take a thing that's normally used as a verb, the denominative form. And apparently bar just means brutishness. Oh, great. I always love one that's just like a brute. Properly foot as consumed, that is by extension of cattle. Brutishness or stupid. Okay, whatever. Sometimes the derivation is not particularly enlightening. All right, so when the counsel has become brutal, people come up with advice. When there's trouble, when things are, there's advice. And the advice can be bad, right? There's all kinds of verses in the Bible where it talks about the Lord confounding the counsel of the wise, that the wise should become like fools. And very often that is the case, that the wise are shown to be fools because their counsel is not the counsel that's wise. It says, surely the princes of Zoan are fools. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. How say ye to Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings. Where are they? Where are thy wise men? Let them tell thee now, and let them know what the Lord of hosts hath purposed upon Egypt. The princes of Zoan are become fools. The princes of Naph are deceived. They have also seduced Egypt, even they that are the stay of the tribes thereof. The Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggers in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. We'll just stop at verse 15. Their counsel has become brutish, animal, just not very sophisticated, like the thoughts of a ruminant animal, not particularly bright. Not that they aren't, well, not particularly bright. Okay, the thing is, they're smart for animals, but for humans, they're not smart. It's okay for a dog to be smart for a dog, but for a human to be smart for a dog is a tragedy, The counsel becomes. How do you say? How can you claim that I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings? You give foolish counsel. Where are all the time, people are often very fond of claiming glory from their ancestors. This is one of the things I think, I dislike. I get it a lot when I encounter people on the right who are, discovering their heritage, and they're kind of, and they become like obsessed with. Oh, hold on, how do I say this? Yeah, but they become, I'm white, what my ancestors did, and they accomplished so much, and they invented everything, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, your ancestors, my ancestors were busy farming while other people were inventing things. My ancestors didn't invent anything as far as I know. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they accomplished things, and they were guilty of things, and they have all kinds of things that they, had claims to fame. I come from, my great-grandfather, whatever. The point is, that's them. You have no claim to their fame. People say, be like saying, Italians discovered America, so I get some credit for that. It's like, what, are you psycho? You don't get credit for things you didn't do. Because it's like, well, people who have skin like mine did that. Still not impressive. Because I don't think their skin made them do it. All my skin, all white skin will do for you is get you a sunburn. Everyone gets sunburn, by the way. But, you can't take credit for your forebears. Well, yeah, I'm the son of the wise counselors of old. Well, get them. Maybe they can help us, because you're not. That's the idea. How can you go to Pharaoh and say, hey, I'm this and that, and start bragging? You suck. I'm not, son of an ancient king. I'm not impressed. You're you seem more like the forgotten spawn of a lesser house. The princes of Zoan become fools. Repeated. You want to know that the princes of Zoan refers to the counselor and the wise men of Egypt. Enough. They're the most. These are prominent cities. They're deceived. All the wise counsel in the world, all the wisdom in the world is useless if you're deceived. Because, obviously, if my counsel is based on a deception, it's worthless. It could be very wise in the lie. You know what I mean? Like, well, if that was the case, then you had the best advice in the world. If that was the case. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And the advice you had was garbage. And they themselves were deceived. And then in their deception, they deceived others. That can happen. There's something, I do find that heartwarming in a way. Because I feel like in our world, we have so many people who are not themselves deceived, who know the truth, but who deceive others. Like in our government, or our non-government entities like the CDC. That's not government. Besides, government, the very idea of that we need governors of medicine, this is not the custom of our country. Anyways. So if they're deceived, their advice sucks. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So if you deceive, you can be deceived. And then through being deceived in your wise counsel, this is the danger of intelligent people. Intelligent people are dangerous because when they're deceived, they're able to bring along other people in their deception. When I believe something false, there's a danger because I influence other people and I teach the Bible. And there's a possibility that I could pass along my false teaching to other people. I try to do things to forestall that. But I mean, there's a degree to which things I don't even intend. I've had people tell me, after I released studies and years later, some young guy, I listen to it all the time, but it influenced me in a way that you didn't expect. That's not how he said it, but that's how I understood it. It influenced him in ways I didn't know. I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't mean to do that. When I heard I was doing that, I was unhappy. They've seduced Egypt, even the stay of the most important people, the people who are like the bedrock of your society. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's necessarily famous people, like you think, politicians, but it's like the people who really make things go. The people who really run things, as opposed to people who are just wise counselors who don't really do anything. Intellectuals. Their product is ideas. The key thing about intellectuals is that you make them accountable for their crappy ideas. When an intellectual has a crappy idea and it becomes a law, and then it turns out to do more harm than good, that intellectual needs to be discredited forever, or at least in that thing, in that part. Like the fact that we still have people even talking about Marxism. Marxism is discredited. If you're still talking about it, you're kind of stupid. You are. You're kind of stupid. Same way if people talk about capitalism, because it's like, capitalism is a Marxist term. Like, I don't believe in capitalism. I don't even believe in the free market, but the free market's the right term. We're talking about freedom, not about the ism of capital. I've started several businesses with no capital. I guess, you can start businesses with zero capital. Are you kidding me? You don't need a lot. I mean, they're not very great businesses. They're more like hustles, but can be done. Surely the princes of Zoan are fools. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. I read that verse. I want the other one. Verse 14. The Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof. And what thereof? What work? Counsel. Right? In the work of counsel. That's the thing. It's like, there are all these problems. Egypt is in trouble. They rely on the Nile, and in this prophecy, the Nile is turning against them. It's becoming a problem. It's drying up. Everyone, the fish, everybody, the people, the weavers, everybody's suffering. All the commerce derived from the river it reminds me of, a lot of this, like, the goodness taken away should remind you of Babylon. When the merchants in the book of Revelation are lamenting over Babylon, it's because of all their merchandise being taken away, right? And it's similar here, that there's like, our fine flax is not, we can't do it, we can't fish. It is that disruption of normal everyday activity that comes from that. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Why do I keep jumping back? Okay, there we go. The Lord has mingled a perverse spirit. It's interesting. The Lord has mingled a perverse spirit. Does he do stuff like that? Is that something God does? God mingles perverse spirits? It doesn't sound like the kind of thing I usually think of God doing. God does good things. Like sending evil spirits to kill people. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not actually kidding, really. Because sometimes that's good. Sometimes people need to be struck dead. Some people have it coming. In some sense, we all have it coming. I could say, I've got it coming. I should be struck dead. Someday I will be struck dead. Unless I come to the day of the Lord, which I don't expect to do. I mean, even if the Lord's day comes, I don't expect to live to the end. I think that will be for others to live to the end. For me, it should be to die. And that would be... To not die would be, I feel, in some ways, not fulfilling my destiny, if I was to live in that time. If I was to live in the time of the end, my destiny would be to be killed. I'm certain of that. So, I wouldn't expect to live to the end. The Lord has mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and has caused Egypt to err. God has caused them to err. Well, it says in many places, he sends strong delusions. He puts hooks in the jaws of the heathen to lead them astray. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean like you may think like hands-on, like he's literally just taking them and forcing them to do bad things. And that's the way it sounds, that's what it sounds. But the way God mingles the spirits and such is usually often he just lets it happen. Now, of course, he sets it all up. It exists in the world. God, if there are evil spirits in the world, it's because God lets them in the world. And if God lets them in the world, it's clear that he intends them to be in the world. Because if there was any other way, if God does not want evil spirits in the world and they're in the world, then the question arises like, well, how'd they get there? If he doesn't want them, then what happened? Are they more powerful? Does he have no power to stop them? Does he have no authority over them? And we know that none of that's true. He has authority over them. He has power over them. And you guys remember that when you read things like that, it may be like, if you're thinking the only purpose God has in this world is to save people, then this would be incredibly confusing. But the fact that that is not God's purpose should help immediately clear it up, because it's like, oh, God's purpose isn't to save everybody, so it's not surprising that he sends perverse spirits and leads people to error. Or they have caused, right? Who they? Well, the princes of Noph and Zoan. But in the midst of it, like in the midst thereof would be like, in the midst of Noph, in the midst of Zoan, in the midst of all the wise counselors. And this happens when you have a bunch of wise people and they all have the same opinion. Because no one wants to stick out as the one person who's of a different opinion. This happens with smart people. It's the delusion of consensus. Because they're smart, but they're not using their intelligence. They're rather being more influenced by social factors. People are like this. They don't always use their intellect. They will be influenced by just external things. Things that have no rational basis. You know what I mean? And so they'll say things to be, pleasing to their colleagues. Science is like, it's funny because they act as if science, science is this very dry, science is about as exciting as this pencil. It's very much just what it is. It's just a tool. But there's no guarantee that anyone using that tool is going to use it right. That's the thing. I use tools all the time. I love tools. I think I mentioned this. I always look around like, I was looking around for a bigger tool, but it's like, I got tools everywhere, man. It's like, all I gotta do is reach. And there's like just tools. I'm just buried in tools. I love them. And God knows I need them. I mean, I don't have to reach hard to just... I want to be... It'd be funny, like, how long could I just keep reaching and not... And I can just come up with tool after tool. Not technically a tool. Okay. Whatever. There's other things. This headlight counts. This counts. I'm just buried in them. What am I saying? Tools can be misused. Just because you have a tool doesn't mean you get the job done. One time I rented this thing for taking pressed-on bearings off of wheels. Pressed-on bearings. The old ones that are much easier to work with. They have these ones that are, wow, getting that off. It was one of my prouder moments. Like if it was gonna, I was really pleased with myself for getting that bearing off. And because I'd borrowed this tool from the store, and it cost me a good deal of money. And I had it for a day. And if I didn't use it right, I wouldn't be able to get the bearing off. You know what I mean? Just because I had it doesn't mean the job was going to get done. I mean, I'm pretty good with tools, but some people probably not. And just renting a tool, like this floor in here needs to be sanded and refinished, right? If I rent the tool to sand it, it doesn't just get done on its own, right? It needs to be operated properly. And that's the way it is with people and science and scientists and wisdom. You can have all the intellect in the world, But garbage in, garbage out. If you have bad information, or even if you're really smart, you can just have a bias that, you know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, we're trying to confirm if this was a good idea. But unfortunately, we already believe it should be a good idea. So our confirmation bias is leading us to misinterpret the evidence. So we think, it's good. And it's like a drunken man staggering into his own vomit. Is it, you know, he is not sensitive enough in his state of inebriation to realize what he's doing, you know. It's like he's stepping in his own vomit. You know what I mean? You should know. You should be aware. Like, you shouldn't step in your own vomit. You shouldn't stagger in your vomit. You know? It came out of your mouth. Why should you step in that? You know what I mean? When you poop, do you get it all over you? What are you, a baby? You know what I mean? Nobody gets it all over them. Except drunk men might. Drunkards might. We might vomit and step in it and slip and fall in their own vomit. And it is more pathetic, right? When a drunkard slips, it's one thing. But when he slips on his own vomit, right? There's a certain poetry to that. He slipped on his own vomit. The byproduct of his own excess is his downfall. See? His own excess in drinking causes him to vomit. And that vomit then ends up on the ground and he slips on it. Because he's not aware. The very thing. You know, and that there's always that that keeps coming a lot also in scriptures where the guy who dug the pit to trap someone else, he falls in it. You know, the guy gets drunk and he vomits and he slips on it. He slips on his own vomit. Instead of other people slipping on it. Because, you know, you still see it if you're paying attention. But a drunkard, not so much. And that's what the nation is like. It's like a drunkard staggering in their own vomit. They're their own worst enemy. That's what I feel like our wise men in our country are. You know, they stagger in their own vomit. The stuff they said yesterday is slipping them up today. Because they can't get it straight. Because they've been lying. They're like a drunkard bragging to a whore. He can't tell the truth. He just can't. You know? You know. The council has failed. The council, you know, it's like being led by, you know, a drunkard who can't even stand up in his own vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail or branch or rush may do. Remember, the head is the ancient animal. The tail is the prophet that teaches lies. But what it's saying, head or tail, branch or rush, what it's saying is like from the greatest to the least. Head or tail. The most important elements of the thing, the beginning and the ending. In that day, the Egypt shall be likened to women. I mean, is that enough in verse 15? Why is there no work? Well, because, remember, it says all the rivers are going to be dried up. And everything that runs in that society runs off that river. This is not a modern, nation. Local droughts could be devastating, and stuff like that. Local, it's not, is it a drought I want? Whatever. That kind of stuff could go. There wasn't like a world economy like we have now. I mean, there was a world economy to some degree, but, it didn't it didn't touch all parts. Like our world economy touches all parts of the world. Their economy, you could get stuff from different parts of the world, especially if we go back into the later Bronze Age as opposed to the Iron Age, which we've moved into here, or we're moving into. The time of Abraham is like this late Bronze Age period that was actually a golden age, and it's no surprise that those stories of the Bible came out of that and were probably written at that time. That's the thing. Is like people always put the Bible as being written later than it was, but it was written mostly earlier than people expect. I think, certainly Genesis and all that. And I think if these head and tail are like in the other thing, the head is the ancient animal, the tail is the prophet that teacheth lies. If they are therefore exceptional members of the community, as opposed to being just everyday people, then it's like, we already have the fishers and the weavers of flax kind of out of work. And I think what it's saying is, yeah, they're going to be out of work, and so are the... what do you call it? The educated class. That's what we're talking about. The educated class also no work to do, which means like in a society where you have nothing, there's like things are so broken down. Like advisors are a luxury. You know what I mean? You don't, like I don't have personal advisors. Some people do. They have financial advisors, right? They pay people to advise them financially. Closest thing I got to an advisor is a doctor, and I never see him. Or her. And she's not a doctor. But that's the thing. It's like there is no it's the professional class. But there's no work for advisors. Because sometimes things are so bad that there's no question of what do? We just start picking up the pieces to survive. We don't need some powdered wig wearing intellectual pinhead telling us a bunch of crap we don't need anymore, because what we really need to know is how to move this rock. Do you know anything about that, Mr. Pinhead? How to clean up this mess? You know what I mean? There is times when people are useless. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you do for a living? I'm a philosopher. Well, you're pretty much useless. Today you're a ditch digger. And I don't know if the head or tail, branch or rush means to be all-encompassing. I'm looking at it as like, we already covered other aspects of society, but this intellectual class, and that's how, like I said, I can be right without being right about the passage, meaning I'm telling you the right thing, even if it's not right here. So let's go on. In that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord of hosts, which he shaketh over it. He shakes his hand over Egypt, and they become like women. They're going to be like, well, women are women. They're weaker. They are. It's just, except for maybe one tiny, of all, like in the women, how many women in the world could take me? I'm 6'3", I'm 230 pounds. I'm going to start, I'm pretty strong. I have training in fighting and stuff like that. And I'm sure there are a couple of ladies who could beat me. I'm certain of it. But, worldwide, there's some big, tough ladies. I'm not totally convinced, but I'm sure there are. But, like some Olympic athletes at the top of their game, sure, I'm sure, college wrestling girls would be a handful. I'm still not convinced they could beat me, but they could sure as hell make me sweat. You know what I mean? They could probably give me a hard time. Right? But for the most part, women are weak. Women are symbolic of weakness. Their bodies are not constructed for strength, quite frankly. They're constructed for strength in childbearing and for strength in holding. Because women can be very strong in endurance. Holding endurance. Women can be very strong in endurance. They can be just as durable as men. That's also true. But as far as just brute strength, as far as courage against things that, because here's the thing, a woman could be full of courage, but it's like, courage comes from a belief in yourself. Meaning, it often requires a little bit of belief in yourself. Otherwise, you just, you can courageously go out and get killed. That exists. I'm going to say it's fine, but that's a possibility. I can just go get killed. or I could competently defend myself and fight. And there it takes bravery to do that. So I'm not if the word courage is what I want. Women, of course, can be very courageous. But what I'm saying is they have little reason to be bold physically in a fight. Like, you know, I mean, like in the movies, you know, they show these tiny, scrawny women beating up big men, and it's ridiculous. Because it's like, you just don't have a chance. I mean, as far as in a straight-up fight. I mean, you know, any girl can come up and cold cock me while I'm not looking, and hey, you win. I mean, of course. But I'm talking about a straight-up, stand-up, toe-to-toe thing. Forget it. It's not even funny. Not for a big, strong man. I mean, there are also a number of men who could, you know, as you get down in the scale of men, as far as their ability to fight, obviously they're not going to have as much success, and there are going to be more and more women that can take them. But the point is, on the whole, if you want to talk about weakness, compare someone to women, because women are weak. Let me tell you. I remember this girl. I remember like my 14-year-old boy, and there was a girl, and she was a bodybuilder, and they're like, oh, she's so strong and tough, and she was over 18, and my 14-year-old just bam, you know, and it was just, you know, it wasn't even that. I mean, you know, just no big deal. You know, and it was sort of like everyone was disappointed because whatever, like when my daughter wrestles, everyone cheers for her. They root for her. They want her to win because she's an underdog. They're underdogs. That's why when women do brave things, it's exciting because it's like, look at, without the strength of a man, she upped and took her courage and fought, you know, with that tiny little body, or, you know, whatever, that female body. But it's, you know, there's instances in the Bible where, you know, like, it'll come to me in a second. It's not Jephthah. Is it Jephthah? Well, you know, there are women who've done courageous things, won battles, etc. They put the spike in that guy's head. I can't remember his name or her name. You know. There's famous paintings of it, you know. But anyways, so, but, you know, but the idea is that they're going to be like women. Afraid, not, you know, pretty much helpless. I mean, you know, 10 women versus 10 men. Those aren't good odds. You know, in a fight. And, you know, left, and often, here's the thing. Especially here, you consider in ancient times, women not only are weaker, they almost never have the training. You know what I mean? That's why I have my daughter wrestle, because I want her to be strong. I don't want the first time a boy touches her for her to be afraid. I want her to know that, you know, whenever in wrestling, if someone puts their hands on you in a way you don't want, you take control of the situation. And that's one thing I teach, is that, you know, when someone puts their hand on you, you take it back, you know, or, you know, that was kind of looked stupid, but point is, you don't just, you know, but my point is basically that they not only aren't strong, they don't have the training usually. Because they aren't strong, we don't give them the training. We don't train women in combat, so they're even more weak in that respect. Not only are they weak, they have no training. Because men often not only have the advantage of a body, but like I said, you know, we encourage boys generally to go into rougher sports, and they're more attracted to them, quite frankly. And if you had a bigger, manlier body, you would be attracted to such things because it's just more attractive to you. For the most part. I mean, some people, there was gentle giants, that's for sure, right? But they're not going to be like men. Men are symbolic of strength, courage, and, you know, fearlessness. Not that men are ever not like that. In fact, no, they're like women in this case. Fearful, quaking, helpless, needing others to defend them. The land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which he hath determined against it. And I have to get going today at a certain set time. Not just yet, but we're going to end at 8:30 no matter what. So it's going to be a little, slightly short of our normal time. Why would the land of Judah be a terror in Egypt? Well, it could be that something happens, because of, well, like, for example, look at Iraq. Back in the aughts, as they're called, the early aughts, like 01, 02, 03, the aughts. O-U-G-H-T, I think. Or is it A-U-G-H-T? Ought? I know ought in the sense of should, but ought in the sense of zero. I don't know. Anyways, we went into Iraq for looking for weapons of mass destruction, and apparently that was just a bunch of BS. How would you ever figure it that our own State Department, every time in the news I hear they say, when they talk about the last president, like, he didn't believe his own State Department. That's funny, because I never believe our own State Department, because our own State Department is a bunch of friggin' liars. Why the hell would anyone believe the State Department, least of all the president? What are they smoking? Are they on crack? The media? I mean, seriously. Who the hell believes the State Department? It's a bunch of liars. Yeah, if I was president of the State Department, so we need to go to war with this, I'd say, I think you need to be fired is actually what we need. Maybe we need to close the State Department. Oh, we can't. It's like, no, well, what? Because your job, if you don't do your job tomorrow, there'll be no one there to do the stupid job you do that no one needs. There'll be no one there who will be there to oppress people in the third world? If it isn't the State Department, who will be there to make deals that hurt the American people if it wasn't for the State Department? Who'd be there to lead us into wars we don't need to fight? The State Department. Yeah, trust the State Department. I mean, it's just, I almost feel like yelling and screaming. I mean, I start feeling like this. Not that I care so much about politics, but the very idea that they would just he didn't trust his own State Department. It's like, was that his? They make it sound like he brought a bunch of State Departments from New York or something. You know what I mean? Like he had a State Department in his back pocket. He's like, here, my own State Department. Here we go. Yep. Got it. My own State Department. Now I'm going to know what to believe because my own State Department will report to me. It's mine. I brought it with me. I've had that State Department since I was a child. What the hell are they talking about? His own. He doesn't believe his own. I just want to, there's times, I got to confess, I'm a violent man. I want to punch things in the face. I do. I want to punch in the face. Or write a song that'll do the equivalent. That's the other part. I'm violent. I'm also got a mouth, and if I can't punch him in the face, I'll be content to write a song that is the equivalent. And I'm saying that just to understand. So take that with a grain of salt. It just indicates the feeling of frustration and the feeling of that you'd like to do something about it, like to or like a slap in the face. Is probably more the thought process I'm in. Like as far as like. When I talk to punch them in the face, I want to bring to their awareness. It's like, hey, why'd you punch me in the face? It's like, well, you're doing something incredibly boneheaded. Oh, well, that it makes sense now. Oh, yeah, So when I say that, I don't really mean it just for violence in itself or for retribution. I do feel like it's more like what I intend by that when I say that is more like I want to slap them until they kind of like come to their senses. But good luck for that. Good luck with that. So we went into Iraq, right? And now what? Or Afghanistan. We've been there for 21 years. Or 20 years, sorry. Almost 20 years. 20 years coming. And it's weird because it's like when I was a kid, I thought the Vietnam War was this thing that like lasted forever. But apparently it's nothing compared to Iraq now. You know what I mean? It's funny. To Afghanistan. And what I'm saying is like, we've done a lot in Afghanistan. And we're in danger. Well, like Vietnam. Vietnam is a terror unto us. It had become a terror unto us. Like you mentioned, Vietnam. It's an embarrassment to America. We didn't win that war. People want to say, I remember Arnold Murray used to say, it broke the back of communism. Whatever, we didn't win. If they want to take away something from it, yeah, we didn't exactly lose either, You know what I mean? But we sure as heck didn't win. You know, we lost. I mean, if we were fighting for Vietnam, we lost. We gave up the country. We lost that war. I mean, America didn't get invaded and we lose, but we lost. We lost what we were fighting for, you bet. We were fighting for them and we lost. And it's a terror to us. Why? Because you remember, oh, look at our failure. We failed in Vietnam. Not only that, the Assyrians came in and they razed every single city. Blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, oh my God, that's what happened to Judah. And it becomes a terror into them. Oh, Judah. It becomes proverbial. More like I was talking about the way that we have this, you know, Afghanistan, Iraq. But maybe it's more like, now, Hiroshima, not for America so much, but just think about the way the world, that name, what it would mean to them, or Chernobyl. You know what I mean? It has a name that indicates, you know, the great dark events that took place around that place, right? Hiroshima. I mean, I'm talking, you know, nuclear war, nuclear bombs, hundreds of thousands of people dead in an instant. That's what that represents. You know what I mean? It's a terror. And Judah also represents a terror to Egypt in this case. Something horrible happened there. Or, like I said, it's either some horror that they are observing or some regret that they're experiencing. It could be either one. Probably a horror, because the Assyrians, you know. But I was just thinking of other ways in which things can become, the way it could become, a land could be a terror unto you. Like, you know, I was going to bring up another analogy. I was just going to make something up. Like, I never like going back to Elmhurst because my dog got run over by a car there, or whatever, you know. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan, and swear to the Lord of hosts. One shall be called the city of destruction. All right, that's a complicated little verse there. That may be where we end up because of time. I have an appointment with a vet. Okay, so we'll talk about this verse. The 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan. This came to pass, like I said, after the Persians, like the Jews established cities in Egypt. And one of them in particular became so populated by Jews, and they spoke the language of Canaan in these cities because there were so many Jews there. It's just like when you go to certain parts of cities and you have Chinatown or I don't know why it was funny to say, or Polandburg. I don't know why I thought that was funny. Or you have Chinatown, Polandburg. Who's gonna come up with like just silly sounding one, but whatever. We got Polandburg over here, and when you go to Polandburg, oh look at it. I'm on the streets of Polandburg, and everyone speaks Polish. You ever been in Polish? I only say it because I go right to Polish because actually I've been in more Polish neighborhoods than others because I'm part Polish, and I've been places where they're all like Polski, Polski, Polski. It's like wow, it's almost like being in Poland. Well, that's what here. There was a city, Heliopolis. In fact, let me look at. There's some notes on this city because what we have here in verse 18 is a corruption of the text. I want some big alarm. Like the text has been altered. Alarm! Look out, guys. The Bible has been toyed with in verse 18. I'm not kidding. This is one of those places that we have it documented that they changed it. And it's significant. It totally changes the meaning of the passage. It's not like one of those things where it's like they swear to the Lord. They take an oath to the Lord. They, you know what I mean? Like, oh, which one is it? Well, it's the same thing. Pray to the Lord. Plead with the Lord. Oh, which one did you mean? I don't remember whether I said plead or pray. But they mean almost the same thing. Right? Not here. Not here. Verse 18 of Isaiah. Let's see. I got my reading glasses on. This is cool. I can like look down. Oh, that's so yawny. The part that's been changed is that city of destruction. part. The primitive reading was Hazedek, righteousness, the city of righteousness. That's what Isaiah wrote. This is from my notes in the Companion Bible I'm reading. It's this Bible. They sell these on... it's the one in the picture always in my front. A lot of people who used to study with Arnold Murray have these because they're quite excellent study Bibles. Though, like the King James, it's not a flawless study Bible. There's no such thing. But it's a great tool to have for little notes like this. And the problem is it's based on scholarship that's 100 years old. So I still diligently try to compare it with other translations because I don't entirely rely on the notes in here. It's not wise. So the city of destruction, the primitive reading was doubtless Hazedek, righteousness, which the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament, the Septuagint, here. Here we go. The Septuagint. I have a rotator interlinear version, and so it has on one column we have the Greek, and the other we have an English translation. So the Septuagint also it's the Old Testament Septuagint because it supposedly had 70 men translate it. That's why they call it the Septuagint. It means the thing produced by 70. And it includes the Apocrypha, which is other books that didn't get included in the Bible. They probably don't belong. But a Septuagint with Apocrypha, Greek and English. So this was translated. The Bible, the Old Testament, was translated into Greek. Actually, in the time period referred to, in places like Heliopolis, the city of righteousness, in those places, because there were so many Jews, and because Greek, when Alexander the Great conquered his empire, he did something that other nations hadn't done, which is Hellenize. Hellenize refers to the process of making people more like the Greeks, the Hellenes. They Hellenized them, meaning they brought Greek culture with them. And for the Jews, this was seen as a great, terrible thing. It was like like they didn't mind so much the Greeks ruling over them so much as they did the cultural. I mean, just right now, like, do you really care so much about who the president is so much as the actions taken? So much, whatever. Maybe that's not the way to put it. Well, but the point is, like, it doesn't really matter who the president is, except it matters what they do. It doesn't matter who does it. Sometimes people get caught up in the who. That's what we had last time. The last president, people were just so... Unfortunately, President Trump suffered from personality problems that made people not like him. And most of the dislike for him was entirely personality driven, which is a terrible shame. Because, I appreciate people not judging people based on personality because I could suffer in that. I don't have the best personality. Sometimes this is not an invitation for people. So you're great. It's not. It's just that in certain aspects, we all have our flaws, right? We're not the greatest. And so, yeah, when I look at that, I'm like, personality is not always something you can count on. You got to think in terms of substance. Because sometimes people have personal, like, tics and parts of their person that just rub you the wrong way. But if it's actually harmless, then we need to, as Christians, we should be able to love them in their difference. Not especially things that are harmless. Let me finish reading this note and then we'll conclude. The Septuagint, in the Septuagint, if you look up Isaiah here, it will say Azadek, which is righteousness. That's what it'll be called, the city of righteousness. From a desire not to compete with Jerusalem, which bore this name, Isaiah 1 called, how has the faithful city become as a harlot? In verse 26, I think it called it the righteous city, right? Isaiah 1:26, it called it the righteous. I'm not going to look it up. It was altered to Cherez instead of Sedek, which in Chaldee is the sun, or in the Greek Heliopolis, which is the reading in many manuscripts. In many manuscripts, instead of saying the city of righteousness, the Septuagint says righteousness. But there are Hebrew manuscripts where it's been changed to Heliopolis because they're like, we'll put the name of the city, because they didn't like saying it'll be called the city of righteousness because, well, that's Jerusalem. And the dudes at Jerusalem who kept the Bible didn't like that, so they changed it. They didn't want there to be a city of righteousness in Egypt. But let me tell you this, God does. If we look at this like as millennial looking forward, part of the thing is like, Assyria, my people, Egypt, my people. God is going to adopt the nations through Christ. I'm Rome, God's people. And also barbarian. I mean, I'm only a quarter Italian. I just say that because it's easy. But they're going to be like the Romans, my people. The Germans, my people. The Chinese, my people. They're all going to be his people. And there'll be cities of righteousness in all the nations. Cities of God. And from those cities, the kings and the queens will come forth to pay homage to the Lord Christ in the millennium. I'm getting ahead of it, but we've talked about millennial stuff. I don't have time to delve into it deeply here. I'll finish that note. The Heliopolis is the reading in many manuscripts. 2 early printed editions and the margins of the authorized version and the revised version, which means the King James, authorized and revised. It's in the margin, and there's a marginal reading given. I just wonder what this is all about. Yeah, I know, cutie. We're going to stop. I got to go get my dog. Well, it's time. Let me just finish this up here. Let me read this note. Okay. In the margins of the Bible, it used to be written that it was Heliopolis and not destruction. Because there are all these manuscripts with different stuff. It's like whenever someone tries to change something in the Bible, it always sticks out like a sore thumb. That's the thing is like, we have manuscripts. We know the Bible hasn't changed much since before Jesus because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, they buried the Dead Sea Scrolls and they stayed there for 2,000 years. Meaning that anything anyone tried to do to the Bible since then would be totally detectable. Like when the Jews tried to change it, they pierced my hands and my feet to a lion, Mashugada, my hands and my feet. Oh! They changed it from they pierced my hands and my feet to a lion. Oh! I don't know why a lion, my hands and my feet, but they did change it. Because you know why? It was too close to being Jesus crucified. They pierced my hands and my feet. Don't want to read that. Don't want to explain that to Benjamin on Saturday at the synagogue in whatever they have for Saturday school. And so it got changed. And it's been proven that it was originally, they pierced my hands and my feet. One of my favorite examples of how the Dead Sea Scrolls have done us such a service. So, it's hard to change the Bible. All right, but when the temple of Jerusalem was cleansed and restored, is after the Nehemiah and stuff, after the Babylonian captivity, the temple at Hierapolis, there was actually a temple built there, was deemed schismatic. Because, remember, they didn't have the idea of synagogues yet. So they just built another temple. Because they didn't have, like, a lesser thing. They're like, well, because it was, remember, you had to worship God in Jerusalem at the temple. There was no, like, make an altar at your house. That was technically against the law. And so, but when the temple was cleansed, by altering one letter, Kerez, the son, they changed the CH for H. And in Hebrew, I want to tell you, like, all right, We're going to be done here, and don't worry, the dog got picked up. Ah, shoot. You know, I'm not good at drawing Hebrew characters. But, especially with a dull pencil like this that almost doesn't have lead. But, let's see. Alright. Alright. And, forgive me for drawing this poorly. But, it's not the fact that this one's shaped differently in the roundness. It's the fact, see that line, how it touches there? And it doesn't touch there? That's the difference between and so they altered and gave us so Jerez, the sun, became Jerez, destruction. See, one letter. One letter changed, and it changed the whole meaning of the verse. Hence the present reading of the current text. So that's why, there you go. Anyways, so we're going to conclude this today. We're going to pick it up right here in the next verse, 19. I got to go. Thanks for joining me today. Look forward to being back again tomorrow for another study. We went a full hour. I thought, sorry today was short. Never mind. Never mind.
The Lord standeth up to plead, and standeth to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people and the princes thereof. For ye have eaten up the vineyard, the spoil of the poor is in your houses. What mean